One person is currently in critical condition at the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital after her property and other structures at the Kokoma market here in Accra was ravaged by fire. Residents believe the fire, which has affected more than 200 people, might have been caused by an electrical fault. Ernest Minu was there in our reports.
Now we're here at the Konkumba market where some portions of the market have been gutted by fire. Indeed, these are makeshift structures within the market. People live here permanently. We'll speak to the owner of what now looks like a very bent structure. He says he lived here. Hello.
I live here with my family.
How many?
Yeah, I'm with my 2 children and my wife. Yeah, it was just a nice abode. Yeah, a wooden structure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how many of you would you say live in this area?
Oh, hey, about 200 homes.
200?
Yes.
I see. Where did it start initially?
Yeah, it started around this area.
Or what do you suspect might be the cause of this fire?
It might be a cause of electric. Yeah.
They came in late because before they got to this place, everything have been already burned. This is my room. I live here with my wife, 2 weeks old baby. My name is Alassar Abdurazak. I'm a member of community police personnel. I am for night this week, so I was sleeping outside, just preparing for the time for my time to go. Look at all my uniforms. This is my footwear. I do not remove anything.
How are you going to spend the night?
That is what I don't know. I'm still thinking. I don't know how I'm going to survive this night. I don't know.
Some are trying to salvage what they can down there. I must say that this very structure that we stand on is even very weak. It looks very dangerous for us at this point. The entire place is flooded. I'm not sure it's as a result of rain, but as a result of residents trying to fetch water to help the fire service, whom they blame for coming late, douse the flame.
Yes, they ain't mean the man by. They won't so see a jack. And then we see I start to say a packy.
One case, have you been affected?
Almost everything. Because what is left, no one will buy it.
Hello.
I was here and heard the gentleman shout, fire, fire. Before we knew it, the fire had gutted our roofs. I've lost everything, the things I bought for my mother and my children. So we begged the president to help us. We are helpless. One lady collapsed and is currently at the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital. If she's dead, I don't.
If a property and you said another so my boy, to have a man anado, me panichawala, Miss Salanado, me just ram the edge when you say, Miss Salanado, me got a job to cook a form, Salanado, my boy, Mrs. Syria near to a Kayasem. Yes, Tramo.
Yeah, and would there. For now, hundreds have been rendered homeless. It remains to be seen how they'll spend the night and how they'll move on with their lives after this inferno. From the Konkuba market here in Accra, my name is Ernest Minu for Joy News.
Now, the fire service says until the residents relocate or restructure the neighborhood, very little can be done to help them in case of any tragedy.
We were there around 13:00 hours when we received a call that there is a fire outbreak at this particular place. We quickly moved back here and we found out there was a fire at these slums.
What's the extent of damage, would you say?
The fire caused damage to an uncountable number of structures being used as shops, dwelling places, game centers, etc.
And so far, has there been any casualty?
Yes, there was one casualty, a lady who was sent to Korle Bu for treatment.
the residents, I spoke to them earlier, they blame you for not coming early enough to help save the situation.
That is what they may say. You know, we received the call, and exactly the time we received it, we just mobilized ourselves and drove here. You know, we have been advised. This is not my first time of bringing my people here. I've been coming here several times, and we do advise them. It's up to them to take our advice.
What has been your advice?
The way the place is not accessible, and the way they have put the structures, there should be a layout so that in case of fire, we can be accessed to the places.
Okay. So your advice is for them to either relocate or to properly structure the area?
The place should be well structured.
Elsewhere, as many as 12,700 people have been killed in chieftaincy and ethnic conflicts in the last 17 years in the 3 regions in the north of Ghana. According to the West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism, most of the deaths occurred during the Konkomba-Nanumba conflict. Speaking at a 2-day capacity building workshop on preventing and countering violent extremism in Ghana, WACSI Executive Director Mutaru Mumuni Mukhtar says stringent measures would have to be adopted to end the needless deaths from such conflicts. Faustina Safo reports.
The compilation of deaths is about the first of such on the conflicts. The West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism Executive Director says a report has since been forwarded to the Interior Ministry.
Chieftaincy and ethnic violence remains the single most pervasive threat to security and the single biggest source of fatality in Ghana. We currently have over 352 unresolved ethnic and chieftaincy disputes throughout this country. And our research in the last 4 months reveals that from 1981 to 2018, chieftaincy and ethnic conflicts in only the northern parts of this country has claimed over 12,700 lives. Of course, this statistic is largely skewed by one incident in 1994, an incident probably half of us here might know, the Nanumba-Konkomba War in northern Ghana.
The 2-day workshop, according to the organizers, seeks to boost the capacity of youth leaders from across the country to counter violent extremism.
Ghana's most valuable trademark is peace and political stability. Yes, it is true that Ghana is not at war. And yet, to describe Ghana as a peaceful nation or a nation in a state of peace would be to overlook the growing reality of the dangerous and disconcerting trends in security. In fact, Ghana's security profile has indeed worsened for terrorism security in the last half-decade by many indicators. Prior to August 2015, when the young guy, a graduate from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, left Ghana to join ISIS.
Speaking on the recent acts of vandalism by political party-affiliated vigilante groups, Director of Research at the Interior Ministry, Samuel Amankwa, said the culprits will be dealt with irrespective of their political affiliations. Director General of National Patrol at the Ghana Police Service, COP Akuri Bayagi, urged the youth to desist from joining the violent groups, largely blamed for recent violent acts.
We should see Ghana as Ghana first and not a political party or an ethnic group or anything. Ghana first. And then if we are really patriotic and we live in our communities, it behoves on all of us, especially all stakeholders, that is the government, the communities, we the individuals who participated in this program, to always have conversation. What is the future of Ghana? And we all know that it is only through peace that there can be development, and we must be tolerant. But a lot of us, the least provocation, we want to react in a violent manner.
Over 100 youth leaders participated in the workshop. For Joy News, Faustina Safo.
A former director of finance at the National Communications Authority, Dr. Ezekiel Ani, has admitted in open court that he gave approval for some $4 million to be paid to a private company on the basis of an assumption that the board had approved the transfer. Dr. Ani is the state's second witness in the case in which former NCA board chairman Eugene Bafo Bone, NCA Director General William Tevi, and 3 others have been charged with causing financial loss to the state in the award of a $4 million contract to Infralux Developments Limited. The former Director of Finance on Tuesday told the Accra High Court he realized 12 months after effecting the payment that the board had not given its approval. There's more in the following report.
Dr. Eni, who is currently a Deputy Director General at the NCA, told the court the former Director General, in the presence of the board chairman, told him the national security urgently needed some funds to purchase cyber surveillance equipment. He explained the NCA had not budgeted to offer such institutional support, so he asked for evidence of the request from the National Security Council. The NCA DG, Dr. Eni, continued, asked him to go ahead and process the letter for transfer of the funds to the company due to the urgent nature, and that the relevant letter would be provided later. Dr. Eni said he then prepared a transfer letter in anticipation of receiving the documents. According to him, Mr. Tevi 2 weeks later handed him the letter from the National Security with a text below stating that the board chairman had authorized the transfer of the funds to the private company. The former finance director said he assumed this meant the NCA board had approved the transfer of the money, only to learn a year later that it wasn't approved by the board. During cross-examination, defense counsel Thaddeus Sori questioned the credibility of the witness. He suggested to him that he was well briefed on the transaction, yet claimed he only heard about it in February 2016. Dr. Eni disagreed. The cross-examination continues on October 18.
Now, Ghana is joining the whole world to mark World Food Day on the theme, a zero hunger world by 2030 is possible. Though many may not find the celebration relevant, there are many in Ghana and around the world who have to struggle to find food to eat. The World Food Programme says 821 million people, 1 in 9, still go to bed on an empty stomach each night. The irony, however, is that there are many who allow food to go waste. Research by Chefs for Change Ghana Foundation, which is now Food for All Africa, actually indicates that more than a third of the food served in restaurants and other eateries in Ghana ends up as leftover. Emmanuel Jivenu has been engaging some restaurant operators and customers on this phenomenon. His report is read to you.
According to the Ghana Agricultural Development and Value Chain Enhancement Project, an initiative of USAID, 50% of produce such as tomatoes, mangoes, pineapple and banana rot away after harvesting due to Ghana's inability to store and process them. A lot of food also goes uneaten at homes, restaurants and cafeterias. Joyce Biawa operates a local eatery at Kokomlemle, a business she inherited from her mother. She admits her customers waste food and does sometimes affect her profit.
Sometimes it does, but what can you do? Because it comes to a time in the dry season, pepper is very, very expensive. By the end of the day, if your customer demands more soup, by the example today, they come to buy the food. Maybe sometimes they want, it can happen that the customer is having a food at home, but without soup. He will intentionally come and buy a small amount of food, maybe a small amount of fufu, and buy more meat, and they say, give me more soup. You have to give him because customer service. If you don't do, next time you will not come again. You may lose your customers. So that's what you do. You give them what they want.
But this patron disagrees. She believes restaurant operators are to blame for food wastage and not customers. She explains why.
The main problem is with the food vendors. Ghana has its own price list of food. Whenever you go to a restaurant or a chopper or something, they have this, a plate is 5 cedis, maybe I can eat 1 cedi. So I think that is the main causal agent of this food wastage. If they are able to structure the price in such a way that everybody will be able to afford, there will be no food wastage. So I think we have to look at that. It's a major problem. So that we stop this, a plate is 15 cedis, a plate is 20. It's so disturbing.
And eating foods from most homes end up in gutters or landfill sites. But do leftovers at Joyce Biawa's eatery suffer the same fate?
We have people also come here to buy the leftovers for their animals at home. Some also come to buy for their dogs, others for their pigs, etc., etc.
So how much is it if I want to buy leftovers for my animals? How much is it?
It ranges from 1 cedi to maybe 10 cedis. It depends on what you bring. Yes. A small paint, the paint rubber is 1 cedi. Because if we don't sell it, we don't use it for anything. So that's what we do.
According to the Royal Society, consumers in developed economies waste more food due to low cost. high standards for the appearance of food, and lack of understanding of the realities of food production. This lady from Germany believes cultural differences also play a role in how people treat food.
I leave it there. I leave it there, yes. Because why should I take it at home? But here is different. I love the food, you know, I love it. And I take it at home and then I eat it, yes.
So in Germany, you don't?
No, no. Because we don't do that. We don't do that. We don't take the food at home. Yeah, we don't do that. But here it's delicious, you know.
The Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, is advocating for reheating or rehashing leftovers to look attractive and edible. But some people we spoke to have different views on asking for leftovers to be packaged.
Well, I leave it because I don't see the essence. Like I said, I don't see carrying the food home. But as long as I'm here to eat, I'll take what I can eat. If I'm not able to eat the rest, I'll leave it.
If it is the type of food that I really like, I will let them box the remaining food and I'll take it home. Put it in the fridge. The next day I can microwave it and then eat it again. Obviously I paid for it. I shouldn't let it go wasted.
When I go to a restaurant to buy food and I'm not able to finish it, I'll just leave the rest on the table.
I'll just look for a takeaway pack. Just pour it in there and take it to my house. That's all. Well, I wouldn't want my money to go into the bin like that. So I'll definitely take it to my house and continue. I can even put it in the fridge and use it the following day.
A zero hunger world by 2030 is possible. To help, don't waste food. Produce more food with less hand by using new and more productive ways to farm and diversify crops. Also, adapt a more healthy and sustainable diet and advocate for zero hunger. Emmanuel Juvenus reports for Joy News.
All right, so we're going to stay a lot more with Zero Hunger, and we go to the website of the World Food Programme to read a bit more about it. So it says, every day too many men and women across the globe struggle to feed their children a nutritious meal. In a world where we produce enough food to feed everyone, 821 million people, 1 in 9, still go to bed on an empty stomach each night. Even more, 1 in 3 suffer from some form of malnutrition. It goes on to say eradicating hunger and malnutrition is one of the great challenges of our time. Now, what is the World Food Programme doing to end hunger? It says, so there are 5 things that their vision, they have 5 steps, and one of them being pave the road from farm to market. So access to affordable, nutritious food for everyone, all 7 billion of us, is vital. We must innovate and invest in making our supply chains more efficient by developing sustainable, durable markets. To support these markets, we must also improve rural infrastructure, particularly roads, storage and electrification, ensuring farmers' ability to reach a wider consumer base. Now, they also talk about reducing food waste, which was what our report was about. It says, of the 4 billion metric tons of food we produce each year, 1/3 is wasted, costing the global economy nearly $750 billion annually. In developed countries, food is often wasted on the plate, while in developing countries, it is lost during production as crops go unused or unprocessed because of poor storage or because the farmers cannot get their goods to market. But also here, we have realized in that report that here in developing countries, we also waste food on the plate. So it talks about it goes on to talk about encouraging a sustainable variety of crops. Now, joining us via Skype is founder and executive director of the Food for All program, Chef Elijah Amu-Addo, who together with his team is doing some great work to end world hunger. He's one of 4 chefs around the world that the Food and Agriculture Organization is working with. So some of the other chefs, prominent chefs in the world that the World Food Programme or the Food and Agriculture Organization is working with are on their website. Let's check out the others on the website quickly. So there are amongst them, so we have, so that's him, Chef Elijah Addo, but he's just one of them. There are 3 others. So let's get to speak with him. Thank you for making time to join us, Chef Elijah. Your work with Chefs for Change actually involved repackaging leftover restaurant food, but you have since scaled that project up. Tell us more about your story.
Yes, so Food for All, I am founder of Food for All Africa. We operate West Africa's first community food recovery organization in Ghana by leveraging on mobile technology to create efficient and sustainable means of nutrition for low-income families and communities through food recovery and redistribution. We work with businesses within the food supply chain, mostly supermarkets, market women, and even rural, semi-rural farmers to ensure that excesses within the food supply chain, which usually arises out as a result of inefficiencies, this food does not go waste. Rather, we connect it to those who don't have purchasing power.
Okay, Chef Elijah, I would want you to tell us what sort of food, for instance, would you be taking from the supermarkets?
So we take packaged food products like bread. You know, the supermarkets bake bread, and they bake bread on daily basis. And whatever bread that they bake, once the store closes, whatever is left, in the next day they can't sell it to customers because customers wouldn't want to buy. And so these are some of the food products that we work with. Not just bread as well, but we also pick products that usually the customers aren't buying, even though they are still wholesome and consumable.
All right. So what's happened to your initial project where you were repackaging restaurant food?
So we work with restaurants as well. It all started with a restaurant. As a chef, I came into contact with a mentally challenged man who picked leftovers from restaurants to feed other mentally challenged on the street. And that was how the vision for Food for All started, on getting every food that is left on the buffet table. But as we spread our tentacles in terms of ensuring efficiency within the food supply chain, we realized in addition to what is wasted at the hospitality industry, there is also a lot of wastage going on within distribution due to inefficiencies. So we work with both the restaurants and then community food businesses to also ensure that excesses within the food supply chain are connected to those who can't afford.
All right. Now, how do you get to reach out to people who can't afford, individuals who are out there who are having to go to bed on an empty stomach and who will be interested in some of these meals that you pick up from the restaurant?
So we work with district Department of Social Welfare officers who usually, through the government LEAP program beneficiaries, we are able to know disabled people. Also, we get to know community orphanages and then schools. So through these community organizations, we are able to recover excesses and then connect to them. In addition to that, we are setting up community discount food stores, which brings food distribution to the community level, where people can walk into the community food distribution centers and have access to food, not based on their ability to afford.
All right, and when can we see the first one?
We have set up the first one in Teshi, and we're looking before the end of the year to have 2 more set up within the coastal belt of Greater Accra before we go to other regions to set up other community food support centers.
Right, Chef Elijah, you're doing such a wonderful work with your Food for All Africa program, but how can we individuals also contribute or make a better impact to reducing world hunger?
So we believe that the role of youth and women are very critical if hunger can be zeroed by the year 2030. How can this be achieved? In the past, when it is birthdays, what people usually will eat is otop. But nowadays, what do we see? The trend has changed, and this is also resulting into malnutrition and obesity as we see in people. So as consumers, one, we need to have behavioral change. In the past, we eat as family. We eat at the table. When we cook in our homes, we provide to the next door neighbor, not because the next door neighbor can't afford food, but it symbolizes the fact that food is supposed to be shared because it is a human right. And these are some of the attitudes we need to go back to. And also we need to also pay attention to reducing infant and adult malnutrition within family, leading to obesity. The role of youth, as I earlier stated, the youth has to take the issue of creating sustainable means of nutrition very serious. And while agriculture should also be seen as a business, it is equally important for individuals and institutions to give food donations to vulnerable and deprived populations, which improve access, as most of the time food is available, but access and affordability is limited to vulnerable populations. Businesses within communities have to make it a responsibility to ensure that on monthly or quarterly basis, at least part of what they produce goes into the communities in which they are located to feed those who can't afford. And above all, we believe that if Ghanaians can ask that the government of Ghana push the national food donors encouragement policy. This is a policy which will ensure that it works with the private sector in ensuring that food donation in Ghana is institutionalized to reach more beneficiaries across the country.
All right. Thank you very much. Then that was the founder and executive director of Food for All Africa program, Chef Elijah Mu-Ado. And thank you very much, Chef Elijah. That's what we call him. And talking about food, we have our resident food expert or analyst and a scholar, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo. Hello, Joseph.
Hello,
Joseph is here to talk about something else, but quickly I'd like to pick your thoughts on the conversation we've been having, the World Food Programme, and the UN is talking about how much food is going waste, and we as individuals, what I found revealing is that apart from the fact that we're wasting about a third of the food that's produced in the world, the resources that go into producing that food also goes waste.
Exactly the case. And so there is drain on water bodies, there is drain on the soil, there is even drain of manpower that's going into this that could have been invested in other areas.
Yeah.
And particularly when it comes to destruction of, for example, forests to make way for farmlands as a way of growing food, then it goes back to the everyday conversation around climate change and how if you are not careful, it may end up destroying our environment. So we really need to watch that. There is enough food to go around for everybody, and so let's not waste food. I think that's the biggest message that we are working out.
All right, certainly. Now, Joseph is here for something else. Our former director of the defunct Unibank, Dr. Kwabena Duffuor Jr., has accused the bank's receiver, Nyamano Dodo, of misleading government to collapse the bank. In his formal response to the writ filed by the receiver demanding the shareholders be made to pay 5.4 billion cedis, Dr. Duffuor argues top officials at auditing firm KPMG issued a discredited report and ended up benefiting from the collapse. of the bank. So Joseph Opoku-Gakpo has joined me in the studio with details. Now, what's the background to this story?
So Dr. Dufo is claiming that Nneɛma Dodu, you'd recall, Nneɛma Dodu, the receiver with KPMG, you'd recall that in September, they sued 17 shareholders of the defunct bank, demanding the repayment of an amount of 5.7 billion cedis. And the receiver said that this is a loss associated with the directors breaching the various laws in their duties. And so Dr. Dufo Jr., Dr. Kwabena Dufo Jr., through his lawyers, has formally responded to that rate that the receiver, Nneɛma Dodu, filed. Okay,
why is it saying the government has been, why does he believe that government was misled?
So he makes the point that KPMG told government that the challenges that Unibank, which has gone down, was facing was as a result of incompetent management, and that they say this is false, but rather the bank's challenges were caused by government's own indebtedness to the bank. And you recall that a report was authored by KPMG, which the BOG relied on to collapse the bank, and they say that Mr. Nneɛma Dodu authored the said report, and they call it the discredited reports, but they don't understand how the Bank of Ghana used that as a basis to collapse their banks, and they are claiming that Nneɛma Dodu and KPMG benefited from this because they were eventually appointed as the receivers as far as the collapse of Unibank are concerned.
So essentially they're saying that they authored a report based on which the Bank of Ghana decided to collapse the bank, and then eventually they took over as receivers.
To manage,
which
right. Is the problem that they
So what release are they seeking?
So they say that the said illegalities and the unlawful removal of the directors of Unibank are things that they think are bad, that should be set aside. They claim that there's been a campaign of vilification in the public space by persons who are holding themselves out as agents of the Bank of Ghana and indeed KPMG. And so they say that the situation has dented their image and lowered their hard-earned reputation. And so they are asking that there should be a situation where there should be general, special, punitive, and exemplary damages that should be given to them, following everything that has happened with the collapse of the bank.
All right, thank you very much, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, taking us through the rate filed by one of the shareholders of the now defunct Unibank, Dr. Kwabena Dufo Jr. Moving on to other stories. Built by Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah many decades ago, the Pualugu tomato factory provided ready market for tomato farmers, as well as many indirect jobs for the people of the Upper East region. Today, the factory is almost a ghost house, with the equipment deteriorating, despite the fact that farmers in the area frequently suffer post-harvest losses after the tomato seasons. For our Joy News agenda on defunct factories across the country, Joy News Upper East correspondent Abesori speaks to farmers who back in the day produced raw materials to feed the factory, and reports many of them now cultivate their crops with no assurances of where to sell the produce.
Recent floods here at Pualugu are over, and these farmers who lost most of their farms to the floods are back to try again. Samuel Abora here has decided to go into onion cultivation because the rains will be completely gone by the end of this month, and onions will survive on little water. His best option would have been to cultivate tomatoes, but he has decided otherwise. He tells me when he was a younger farmer somewhere in the 1980s, tomatoes in this town were as precious as cocoa because of the Pualugu tomato factory.
In the whole region, like Zia, Tono, and other surroundings that do farming in tomato, but it was very okay.
But today, the Pualugu tomato factory is almost a deserted place, gradually falling apart.
When the machines went off and they were not functioning, the women who used to come and buy tomato from us, they won't even stop here to buy tomato, but they would rather go to Burkina to buy tomato and come and pass. So it has made farmers to stop farming tomato.
The main gate to the factory is always locked and remained locked when Joy News visited on Monday. Our checks revealed nothing had changed as far as operations in the factory are concerned. There is no ongoing activity there whatsoever, and there is a station security guard who was not at the gate at the time of our visit. Last month, Joy News got these visuals of the factory when Deputy Minister for Food and Agriculture, Dr. Sagri Bambangi, came on a tour of the place. Some of the equipment were gradually rusting away and weeds were growing on the compound of the factory. Our checks on Monday revealed nothing so different.
Oh, it's really, we are really having a difficulty because certain times you even produce, you don't have market. And it has given the way for most of these our young men to dip into the cities. And there are no jobs, they just go and create a lot of problems in the city because there's no work even in their own area.
Charles Avala here is another farmer here at Pwalugu who had the experience of growing tomatoes to feed this factory when it was functioning.
Anytime you just harvest, they come to take it. It's not a question of where a queen mother will come and dictate a price to you, you know. And before you even start, you and the factory knows how much they are going to buy at their crate. And it didn't only benefit the farmers, but the hand help. We used to engage women in the transplanting. We engage the women in the harvesting. The factory also engaged workers in the process of their producing this thing. So it used to give employment not only to the farmers, but a cross-section of the community. I believe if the factory is actually working, young men from this community will not want to go to the south.
Hajia Tenitia once won the award for National Best Tomato Farmer, but eventually had to quit farming because it was no longer lucrative. She now sells farm chemicals and other inputs to earn a living.
The time we are starting farming, I don't get anything. Factory give me pumping machine. Factory give me fertilizer and everything. They bring the tractor to come and plow up my farm for me. So I'm starting the work, and if you produce the tomatoes, factory will buy all. If you come and buy, you will give you receipt until the thing finish. She will remove the money, then you give you your interest. That time is fine. But it comes sometime, the factory no work again. If you plow the thing, I cry woman to come and buy the thing. They won't pay until factory come down. They close the factory. So now, no any business from here.
Former Pro-Vice Chancellor of the University for Development Studies and current president of the Miller Institute for Transdisciplinary and Development Studies at Bolgatanga, Professor David Miller, has some suggestions on the best way to approach revamping the Pwalugu tomato factory.
We all know the history of suicides and various mental cases that resulted from tomato investment in this area. So they have reasonably shifted to gardening egg or eggplant and pepper. So we were arguing for a factory that would deal with multi-vegetables, and also the production of watermelon and yellow melon and mangoes and so on and so forth. So that will give a lot more viability to the factory. But to count on factories first before the raw material is not the way to go.
Government after government have given some assurances of getting this factory back up and functioning, but none have managed to deliver on these assurances. The people of Pwalugu and the Upper East region are hoping that perhaps the current MPP government, with its one district, one factory policy, may just be able to finally revamp the Pwalugu tomato factory. For now, they wait, they farm, and they hope. Albert Sorry, Joy News, Pualugu.
Now, 8 residents of Manhia in the West municipality of the Greater Accra region have been put before court a day after they were arrested during a demonstration in the area over poor roads. Angry residents Monday mounted roadblocks and burnt used lorry tires, preventing motorists and commuters from using the pothole-ridden road. Assembly member for the Insakina electoral area, Isaac Kwekuminta, tells Komladum the youth duly served notice of the protest and copied all the security agencies. He's unhappy police used tear gas to disperse the crowd, which has left a pregnant woman still in hospital after she collapsed.
Some residents of Manhian in the Gan West municipality Monday burned lorry tires and mounted roadblocks to draw attention to the poor roads. Demonstration turned violent as police reinforcement used tear gas to disperse the protesters. A pregnant woman reportedly collapsed and was admitted in hospital. 8 other residents were picked up by police and detained for over 24 hours. Assembly member for the Insakina electoral area, Isaac Kwekuminta, is incensed about the conduct of the police.
Initially it was calm. All of the sudden reinforcement came, shooting tear gas and guns. That's happening the mess of the thing.
Okay. And we understand that, at least one person is in hospital.
Yeah, it's a pregnant woman. When they were blowing the tear gas, we were told that it was collapsed. We were rushed to the hospital. We haven't heard anything from the woman yet.
Okay. But concerning the road proper, what have you heard from the MC following the demonstration yesterday? And we also understand that graders were here to begin, working on the road for you. Is that not satisfactory enough?
I should say this road is long overdue. Way back some years ago, we demonstrate. This is the 4th demonstration we have in this particular road. And any demonstration that takes off, you could see that people are aggressive. So we are appealing to the road minister to come to our aid.
According to the Accra Region Police, the 8 were arraigned before court Tuesday. But following the demonstration, earth-moving equipment from the Gan West Assembly were deployed to plow portions of a road to at least make it motorable. But the residents drove the workers away in protest.
Started demonstration on Senna.
While we were demonstrating, we saw the graders and earth-moving equipment, but we chased them out because we are frustrated. All we want is for our roads to be asphalted, that or nothing else. Okay. As you can see, this area has not been touched, and this is one of the reasons why the residents are outraged and are agitating, that until they find this particular area smoothing up and asphalted, they will not relent in their efforts to carry out series of demonstrations after this.
I gathered the churches within my electoral area to give me some funds to feed the potholes. At that time, this place was going wings. We buy the gravel to feed it before they give the road to the contract. All that we need is they should do the quota for us. We won't talk, we'll be free.
Until then, these potholes will widen. The gullies on portions of the stretch will deepen, and before our eyes, the roads may just completely cave in. That is the worst fear of residents. Komladum, Manhian, Accra.
Let's move on to other stories. The Ankafo Psychiatric Hospital in Cape Coast has now been turned into a sand-winning site by some encroachers on the hospital's land. Hospital authorities say they are at their wits' end as they fear the wards and other major installations at the hospital may soon be sold off by the encroachers. Richard Kojunyako visited the facility and filed the following report.
Ankafo Psychiatric Hospital is one of the major psychiatric institutions in the country. The land on which the hospital is situated was acquired by Ghana's first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, in the early 60s. But the place is now being reduced to a sun-winning site where the hospital has been used as an access point to these sites. This is beyond the encroachment by estate developers and other individuals.
Yeah, you can see that this is the sewage pipe which has been destroyed. You see some pieces of it being destroyed. It leads to the sewage tank itself. We've embarked on a long walk to the sand-winning site that is on the land of the Ankrafo Psychiatric Hospital. Here you are. A stagnant water has been left after the mining activities, and it is breeding mosquitoes. I have with me the Health Services Administrator, Mr. Moses Po. Here we can see a stagnant water breeding mosquitoes as a result of the sand winning done over the years, which is ongoing. This is not the only site. There are other sites that is in progress. So they pass through the hospital gate to the winning site. We've lodged complaint to the police several times, and now some use an alternative route, but the rest continue to access through the hospital gate.
I'm Dr. Kojoma Forbing, the acting hospital director of Ankrafo Psychiatric Hospital. Initially, the lands in the periphery of the hospital land were being developed, so it wasn't really affecting our day-to-day practice in the hospital or our security. But currently, they have developed to the point in which they are developing right next to our wards, they are developing right next to our school, and they are even developing around our morgue. So people are moving, are interacting very closely with the hospital structures now, the hospitals where the patients are, where the staff are. It's causing us all sorts of security headaches currently. And, you know, the hospital have plans for further development and expansion, and all those lands are being used up now. Recently, they've started demarcating the land around between our buildings. I'm afraid one day I'll wake up and they'll tell me to evict from my house because they have now sold my house as well, and I'm an illegal tenant. So it's getting quite unbecoming.
The management of the facility argues if the encroachment is not halted, would impede the congenial environment needed to support the rehabilitation process of patients.